of January of Cabinet. We'll go straight to the agenda, so we'll go on. Okay. Agenda number 1, apologies.
No apologies made.
No apologies. Declarations of interest.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Members will be aware of the requirement in the Council's Code of Conduct to declare any personal or prejudicial interests in respect of any business to be conducted at today's meeting. Such interest should be declared now or as soon as the councillor affected becomes aware that they have a personal or prejudicial interest in today's business. All members declaring an interest are required to state clearly what the interest is and to advise whether it's a personal interest or a personal and prejudicial interest as defined in the Code of Conduct. Any member declaring a prejudicial interest is required to leave the chamber for the duration of the business and can take no part in the proceedings. Members with a personal interest only may take part in the debate and any vote. If a personal or prejudicial interest is declared today that has not previously been disclosed and recorded, the councillor concerned will be required to complete and sign a declaration of interest form, which is available online. And I can see that we have 2 hands up, Bobby and Hugh Hilditch.
Probably for the same reason, I suspect, that we are members of Denbighshire Leisure Board. I'm the chair.
Thank you, Bobby. That's a personal interest only. You have an exemption under the Code of Conduct because you were nominated by the council. Thank you.
And I'll fall in the same situation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Is
you.
there anyone else wanting to declare an interest? No. Okay. Thank you, Lisa, for that. Agenda item 3, urgent matters. There's just one very sad one from me. You will have heard the sad news of the loss of Lloyd Williams, who was a former colleague and councillor and former chairman of Denbighshire County Council. We will be paying a tribute to him in full council next week, but I wanted to raise it here today in very sad news. He'd provided an awful lot of service to Denbighshire over the years and was highly respected, and I wanted to raise that. Okay, agenda item 4, we'll go to the minutes. First of all, for accuracy, page 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. For matters arising, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, 11, page 12, 13, page 14, 15, and 16. Will somebody propose that they're correct, please? That was Julian, seconded by Tony. All cabinet members happy with that? Nobody not supporting it? Okay, diolch, thank you. Agenda item 5, award of housing maintenance material supply contract via the ADRA All Wales framework. Tony, please could you introduce the reports?
Yes, thank you, Leader. Okay, so the last 2 awards is coming to an end now in well, very shortly actually. So last year, ADRA established an all Wales single supplier framework for building materials and associated services with Travis Perkins. To deliver the idea is to deliver high quality services fit for purpose goods all across Wales. Many have already signed up to this, CHADW, Conway, Morn, Clwyd Allen, Group Cynefin, and others, with the contracts to follow. So a major benefit is that Travis Perkins are supporting provision of new technology as well as carbon conscious materials for construction. So there are opportunities for collaboration across Wales, offering potential savings due to the economy of scale and, importantly, to reduce carbon emissions. Travis Perkins working on innovative to help to assist the decarbonation of the housing stock and environmental situations. Thank you. I'll pass on to the officers with me today. Obviously, we've got Dave Laurie and we've got Mark Cassidy as well. Welcome, Mark. Dave, would you like to add anything to that, please?
Sounds terrible, but I think I'll defer to Mark in the first instance. He's done all the hard work on it, so I'll let him go through it.
Okay, thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. As Councillor Tony just mentioned, our current material supply contract for housing maintenance team comes to an end this year. The last two awards have been to GWASANs and have been successful, but we were made aware during in 2021 of this new framework, which is, as it's described, an all Wales framework for sourcing materials. So we explored a little bit more, and obviously I'm here today to seek your approval to award to Travis Perkins via the ADRA framework. So the advantages of the new framework would be the economies of scale, because as it says in the report, various social landlords across North Wales plus Anglesey Council and soon Wrexham Council will be joining the framework. So we're hoping with standardisation of product across all the authorities and social landlords who are part of the framework, we'll see the benefits of that. They also offer us some additional benefits via the framework. I'll give you an example. Currently, the guys who work in the south of the county down the Corwen area, and so if they want materials, they have to come up to Denby to GWASANs here. Travis Perkins have what they call remote stores. It's an unmanned store which can be located anywhere. So in the south of the county, it's all very clever. The operative would attend the stores, sign in, book a job number before he's allowed in, go in, take the materials he needs, close the door after him, and then there's a Wi-Fi stock check, which then books the parts he's taken to the job. So we'll be cutting down on transport between the south of the county and Denby for materials, for instance. So there's a real advantage there. I mentioned standardized products. Again, economies of scale. If we can all agree on, I'll use electrical sockets as an example. If we can across all those participants, and we get the economies of scale, big potentially good savings. Obviously, at the moment, the way material supply costs are, as you'll be aware, it's very expensive now. Material prices are going through the roof. So this is another where we see a distinct advantage in doing that. Another advantage for this framework will be tooling management, tool hire, because we currently, the guys who work for us are saying the tool allowance, which is a national agreement, isn't sufficient to buy the tools. Now we can go, using this framework, we can then provide tools for them on a higher basis, and it would be, if they fail, they can be repaired and replaced. So we don't have discussions with the team about, it's your responsibility to provide tools. No, it's not, it's yours. So there's a lot of wins for us by doing this. So yeah, hence seeking your approval.
Okay, thank you for that information there. I'll open out to questions from Cabinet members, please.
If I may, it's not a question, more a suggestion. Section 8 of the report, there's a 1.5% rebate on the account spend coming back to members. I'd suggest that if that's going to be roughly £6,000 a year, to then start divvying that up amongst members and spending it on small projects, I'd suggest that those projects are hardly going to be noticeable. The way the council budgets have gone over the last decade, the discretionary fund that was available to the chair of the council is virtually non-existent. As a suggestion, what I'd like to say is that if that's a regular income stream of £5,000 to £6,000 a year, maybe that should be put to the discretion of the chair rather than split amongst 48 different councillors, just to put it to good cause and to make it easier to administer, perhaps. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, Tony, thoughts on that, please?
Yes, Leader, I think that's probably quite a very sensible idea, isn't it? I mean, it would be a very small pot of money otherwise, wouldn't it? So I think I can see what the logic in Richard's suggestion. So yes, I'd be happy to go along with that.
Is that a decision that we have to take today? If it is, that we would need a proposal and a supporter for that, or is that something that you would look into when the contract has started?
I think it's something that we'll take on board, and I say it's a very sensible suggestion, and I'm happy to take it on board. But I think let's see when the contract's sorted, and then we'll get it in place.
Okay, just on the legalities of that, Lisa, have you any thoughts on that proposal?
Yes, Chair. It would be subject to the members' agreement. Presumably, there'll be a members' agreement that would have to be considered at the time. So I would recommend not amending the resolution on that basis, but taking those comments back.
Okay, the comments will be made and will be recorded for further discussion at the appropriate time. Yeah. Okay, Richard, happy with that?
Yeah, that's very good. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions from cabinet members? Brian, please.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. Just a question to the officers. Is there any sign that the volatile material market prices might start falling back anytime soon?
Well, we heard rumours last year from the market that things would start to, prices would start to reduce, certainly around things like timber and plasterboard. But right now we're not seeing that change. But I don't know. Long term, hopefully, as things stabilise within the markets, yeah, the prices will start to come down. Bit crystal ball at the moment, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Sorry, just to comment as well. I think in terms of this contract, we're looking at high volume, low value materials, and that's really where the economies of scale kick in. Plus, I think another advantage will be we've found, and it's been quite sporadic, that certain materials we have peaks and troughs of availability. So I think the partnership with Travis Perkins would settle that down a little bit, certainly for us as well.
Okay, just one question from me. In terms of the framework agreements, that does take serious consideration of our local procurement intentions, doesn't it? So for procuring locally, that's taken account of within the framework, is it?
As far as possible, yeah. Obviously, we are talking about a major supplier, but they will support local wherever they can. I think as well, in terms of going forward, it doesn't really change the situation. We've had the last 8 years on a contract with Jewson's, who again are a major supplier. That's obviously how you get the financial benefits. But where required, our operatives will use local suppliers where it's convenient and operationally beneficial. So nothing really changes in that context.
Right. Okay, that's good. Cabinet members, okay?
Yeah, just one more question, Leader. So on a similar theme, do we keep in touch with our suppliers at the minute? There's a lot of debate about the supply of grout, tiling, grout, sealant. Do we know from our suppliers bottlenecks in that sort of area that might actually cause a problem in what we're trying to do as a service within the council?
No, currently, Councillor Brown, we're not experiencing any difficulties for our materials.
Okay, thank you for that response.
Okay, no more questions from cabinet members. I'll open up to questions from non-cabinet members now. Meirig, please.
Diolch yn fawr, bore da i gyd. Diolch yn fawr chi, Mr Cadeirydd. Dasgau, lle mae'r lle agosa gan y cwmni yma i'r rhyl, achos maen nhw wedi cau i'w lle yn rhyl, o'n i'n deall. Os yna le prestatyn a rhyddlan ag yn y blaen, be di'r lle agosa? A'r ail gwestiwn, a diolch i'r cynghorydd Richard Menon am ei ddadansoddi 1.5%, sef 46,000 dwi'n meddwl ddeda fo, rhwng 41 aelod dros 1,000 o bunnau. A mi allwn ni fel cynghorydd cefn gwlad wneud dipyn efo 1,000 o bunnau. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch Meirig. Pawb cael y cwestiynau? OK, na i rhoi'r cwestiynau i'r swyddogion, please. Ydy'r swyddogion wedi cael y cwestiwn? Do? So rwy'n yma rhaid ateb?
As far as I know, I think the nearest site is Denby, isn't it? For Travis Perkins now.
Sorry, yes, they closed their real operation. I think I'd have to defer to Mark on their proposals. Mark, did you get the question or did you not?
No, I didn't.
Find you.
No,
it was basically what would be the proposals for supplying our operatives now that Travis Perkins have shut their real operation. Just to clarify the figures, Merrick, it's £6,000 a year based on 1.5%, not 46.
Oh, what? That's bad news.
£100 a week, Merrick, £100 a week. It costs us more to administer and send £2 to every councillor. You'd be saving up forever to buy a...
Very good. Diolch yn fawr.
Sorry, to answer the question, we will be using the stores scenario that I mentioned earlier, which is the freestanding, they're basically large containers, which is like a mini warehouse, and the guys will be able to attend and take the parts as they need. That's one solution, and also once we're up and running from the ICT perspective, the guys will all have van stocks, which will be replenished probably twice a week for all the common parts. So yeah, there'll be no issue with material supply around the north of the county.
Thank you for the answer. No more questions? No? Okay, thank you. We'll come back. Tony, if you could put the recommendation, please.
Yes, certainly, Leader. Thank you. Recommendations 3.1. The Cabinet approve entering into a building material supply contract with Travis Perkins by the ADRA framework for a period of 4 years. 3.2. That Cabinet confirms that it is read, understood and taken account of the wellbeing impact assessments in Appendix 1 as part of its consideration. I'd happy to propose that. Okay.
Propose a seconder.
Matt, Leader.
Matt, Richard, I think seconder. Is everybody in agreement with this? Nobody against? Okay, thank you for that. Thank you, Tony, and officers.
Thank you.
Agenda item 6, extension of leisure services contract. Julian, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Leader. Hopefully a pretty straightforward one. You're obviously all aware that Denbighshire Leisure Limited was established back in August 2019, and the contract for leisure services was agreed as of the 1st of April 2020 on a 10-year period. Of course, we're all aware what exactly happened pretty much the day after we signed the contract. Denbighshire Leisure, obviously we were pretty much unable to trade for the best part of a year, and also had their opportunities to look for alternative business sources obviously restricted as well. There was a clause within the contract that, between Denbighshire Leisure and ourselves, which allows for 2 periods of 12-month extension to the contract to be allowed if obviously mutually agreed. The Denbighshire Leisure Board made a request to ourselves for a 12-month extension on the grounds that they'd essentially lost their first year. That was considered by the Strategic Governance Board within Denbighshire County Council, who are recommending allowing a 12-month extension, which would extend the period of the contract until the 31st of March 2031, and that would still leave one 12-month extension still possible. There were no other impacts involved as a result of doing this. So, as I say, the Strategic Governance Board is recommending that we proceed with that now, and I'm happy to make that recommendation to Cabinet today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Julian. It looks straightforward to me. Are there any comments from Cabinet members on this? No, everyone's okay. Yeah, no, non-Cabinet members, any questions around this?
Os ga I ddod i mewn, Ms Cadeirydd, jyst cwestiwn bach, a ddim I wateb heddiw wrach, ond fe gafwyd llif yn dog, ddaru'r gys ddŵr, ollwn dŵr dros y gwaith newydd. Dwi'n yn gwybod o hwnna'n gost I ni ar y pryd yn y contract, a pam ddar o ddigwydd, os oes rhywun medru dod nôl atai ar hwnna, swn I ddiolchgar iawn.
Diolch, Meirig. Dwi'n siŵr bod Bobby di pigo-fyny ar hwnna, neith I gyrru ymateb I ti i'r cwestiwn yna.
Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Okay, diolch am hwnna. Okay, so yna cwestiwn arall? Na. Okay, thank you. Julian, do you want to come to the recommendation, please?
Yes, of course, Chair. So the recommendation is the Cabinet agree to grant an extension for a period of 12 months to the term of the leisure services contract made between Denbighshire County Council and Denbighshire Leisure Limited on the 1st of April 2020 in accordance with clause 2.2 of the contract.
Okay, that's been proposed as seconder. Okay, that's Mark. Everybody in agreement with that? Nobody against? Okay, thank you. That's been moved. Thank you, Julian. Agenda item 7, evaluation of the options for a new service delivery model of the revenues and benefits services. The service. Julian, again, please.
Yep, thank you very much, Chair. I've got Paul Barnes and Debbie Basham with me today to support me in this paper, as well as Steve. I'm sure you're all aware of the back history with regards to this. We entered into a contract with Civica going back to 2014 to carry out our revenues and benefits function, and that contract has functioned exceptionally well in the period since then when it's been in force. However, we live in a commercial world, and Civica gave us notice that they would, due to a change of business modeling internally to them, they would no longer wish to proceed with the business partnership model, which we have, and which they had a number of similar systems in place across England, and they would be withdrawing from all of those. The contract that we currently have with them was actually extended because it was working so well up until the end of March 25. So they would be contractually obligated to maintain the contract up until then, but obviously as they're withdrawing and all of their English partners will be withdrawing as soon as possible, we wouldn't want to be in a situation where we were the last man standing with although contractually obligated, we wouldn't be perhaps receiving the level of support that we have in the past. We set up a project team to initially look at an options appraisal, which is contained within the report that you'll see in front of you. The full options appraisal is Appendix 1, but essentially just to to summarise, there were 5 options that we looked at. First one is do nothing, just let it run up until March 25. Well, as I said, contractually that would be permissible. There'll be a risk to the service level from that, and we would still be faced with having to do something at the end of that period. Second option would be to outsource to another similar organisation. That one has proved not to be particularly viable on the grounds that any other companies that are in the similar market are now adopting a similar process. So we don't think there would actually anybody be out there that would be able to deliver what we would want from a similar contract. The third option is we could contract with one of the other local authorities or piggyback onto the back of one of the others that had a similar organisation or structure with Civica. However, they are all bringing the function back in-house within their individual authorities. So that one wouldn't be viable either. The fourth option would be to establish an alternative delivery model option. That one essentially has been ruled out on the grounds that because of the size and scale of it, it just wouldn't be viable to set up a company to do that. So the fifth and final option, which was looked at, was to bring the functions back in-house, and that is the preferred option, which is in front of you. We have obviously we made an initial cash saving when we went out to Civica, but we believe by taking advantage of all the learning that we've had over the last 8 years or so, that we would be able to incorporate a lot of that learning when bringing it back into house, and there would be an additional saving somewhere in the region around about £340,000, although there would be some initial one-off costs that would need to be met out of the first year. As I say, project teams been put in place, assuming that Cabinet approve the way forward as indicated. We would then commence negotiations with Civica, with the intention probably for it to come back in-house sometime in around about 18 months or so. I think that's probably all I wanted to say at this point. We're just looking for Cabinet support essentially to go down that route. Obviously, we will come back once a situation had been negotiated. Steve, Paul, or Debbie, is there anything any of you wanted to add to that before we go to questions, please?
Not from my perspective.
Yeah, I'll just add something. I think Paul wants to add something as well. So, yeah, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Steve. Yeah.
Sorry. My connection's awful this morning. I apologise. I had to switch my camera off, so I missed actually what you said at the beginning, Julian. I just wanted to make the point, just in case you didn't, that obviously this partnership has been working really, really well. You know, hence I caught that, hence the extension to the contract, but. You know, it's worked fantastically well during COVID, delivering all the business grants. So this isn't something that we wanted to do. So we've had to respond to the commercial decision of Civica, and obviously they're a commercial company and they need growth. And that is, it's not that, you know, it's nothing to do with Denbighshire that they're pulling out. It's that they're pulling out from the this sector of work. So all their partnerships they're pulling out of because they don't see growth in that sector. And so, you know, that's the driver behind this. But I do think now that it has happened, the option that we want to pursue and that we're recommending that we pursue is a really good opportunity to bring this back in-house, make savings, and continue delivering an efficient service for councillors and for residents of Denbighshire. Thank you.
Yeah, my point primarily was to just make members aware that this is predominantly a back office change. So from a resident's perspective, they would see no change at all. This is more around how we deliver the service internally and the changes that impact on colleagues within the authority, but the residents wouldn't see any material impact. So it's just worth noting that, I think. Thank you.
Debbie, do you want to add anything to that?
I think just a point. Obviously, I've looked at all the different options and primarily led on the options paper. And I'm actually from a commercial background, and I looked very long and hard at all the different options in terms of another organisation, and all of the organisations that are outsourcing at the moment do not want a partnership model. They want just a service delivery model done with their own people. So it wouldn't sit right with the ethos of Denbighshire, and it wouldn't sit right with how well the partnership has worked in the past to actually go with another organisation.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I should have added, Chair, that in case anybody wasn't aware, Debbie is a bit of a poacher turned gamekeeper on this one, because she used to manage the service within Civica prior to leaving Civica. So.
Okay, thanks. It's also, can I say, it's really good seeing the reports that the options that you considered in making the recommendation for Cabinet to consider as well. So we can test anything out in terms of what's been looked at, which is really helpful, I have to say. That you just didn't focus on one recommendation. It's pretty clear here that you had looked at all eventualities before coming to this conclusion, which I think is really helpful for us as members. Okay, I'll open this up to Mark, please. Cabinet members. Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. And just a quick thanks to Paul, the team, and Steve Gadd. Obviously, the business rates, the grants, council tax, these difficult questions sometimes. When I've got in touch, they've always responded, even to the difficult ones. Paul's always answered the phone, which is good, and helped out. So I hope that carries on, and it sounds like it will. Just a couple of points. Obviously, we're talking about how good the team are. So do we know, in the majority, are the team happy with this? Because they're going to be the key to this. So that's one question. And the other one, we talk about savings, and then we talk about potential extra costs on 10.3. So does the saving include extra costs, or is the extra cost unknown? Or it's nice to be talking about bringing the service back in-house. Just those two questions, please, talking about.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Julian, did you pick those up?
Yes, yes, I did. I mean, I'll defer to Paul in terms of what discussions have happened with staff. Obviously, we're in a slightly difficult situation until we get the authority today. We're not formally negotiating with Civica, and the staff obviously still are currently employed by Civica. So we've got to bear that dynamic in mind. In terms of the costs, my understanding, those would be the full year savings with regards to that. But in year one, we wouldn't achieve that full figure because there would be one not in actually delivering the change. Paul, is there anything?
Yeah, just to support your comments there, Julian. Yeah, we've not formally engaged with the staff at this stage because they are Civica staff, but we obviously have regular conversations with them, and the general feeling is very positive about coming back in. And if that was an option, that there's a fondness. The vast majority of colleagues involved in the service live in the Denbighshire area, so there is a very much a fondness for Denbighshire. So I don't see that as a major issue if that was a proposal that was back today. And really, just to say, the assumptions made around the costings are exactly right, Julian. So thank you.
Just to come in, because obviously I ran the contract for 5 years on behalf of Civica, and all the staff. It was a real partnership working, and the staff feel like they're an extension of Denbighshire anyway. The majority of them were tupied over. We haven't had a lot of other people that did not initially work for Denbighshire County Council, and a lot of them actually still feel in their hearts that they do work for Denbighshire because they use the same IT, they use the same, it's all the same systems. So there isn't really, there hasn't really been a huge cut, which is one of the things that Civica we're trying to change the culture slightly, and I think they've changed all the good things. But in terms of the staff and where they feel they belong, I think they would definitely say they belong to Denbighshire, if that makes sense, because of the service that they've always carried out. The total saving of the costs in recommendation 5, the total saving would be 1,923,000 in year 1. That's the total saving.
Okay, thanks for that, Debbie. Okay, happy with that, Mark?
Yeah, I know the question was difficult about the staff, but it's crucial, and it's good to hear the feedback. So, Giacomo, thank you for that.
Bobby, please.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I just wanted to say that I can remember when this went out to Civica, and Steve Gadd just said it's an opportunity to move back in-house and make savings. Well, when we took it out to Civica, it was to improve efficiency and make savings, just reminder there. And a very strong case was made to go out. And at the time, no mention at all was made by Civica of it being necessary for other councils to come on board in order to make it viable for them. I realise that we're in the situation we're in, and we've got to move forward with it. But I just feel, looking back as someone who remembers the move very clearly at the time as being very difficult situation with staff, the in-house staff, who at the time they weren't really persuaded that it was necessary to change what we had. So I just thought it was appropriate to just put that caveat in as a reminder. I appreciate we're in the position we're in now, and we've just got to go with it and do the best we can. But maybe we need to think long and hard before we go into these agreements in future. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that, Bobby.
Chair, if I can just briefly respond.
Yes.
I mean, officers may want to as well, but just from my perspective, I just wanted to really reinforce what Steve said and what hopefully I said at the beginning. This has been a very successful partnership for both sides. It was, as far as I'm aware, it was profitable for Civica, and it certainly was a seamless operation in terms of our clients. They are a large-scale commercial operator, and they're not about standing still. They're about growth on growth on growth, and they clearly took a commercial decision that they didn't believe this model was the way that they would achieve that. It's no reflection on the partnership with Denbighshire. It's no reflection on any of their other partnerships. So it was the right decision to take at the time. And I don't think, regardless of the fact that there might be some more savings around, had they not taken that decision, I am sure that we would have continued very happily running this contract and would probably have continued to extend it because it has worked exceptionally well for our residents in Denbighshire and for the staff that have been involved. Yeah. So I think it was the right decision that we took at that time, and I think this is the right decision that we're taking at this time as circumstances have changed.
Would you mind if I just said a couple of things? Yes. Basically, because obviously I've got a good understanding of Civica, what Civica were able to do, and I was involved in this, was redesign some of the processes, because some of the processes, there was quite a lot of clunk in them. So because we work with, or Civica work with other partnerships around all of Britain, they were able to take the best bits from each partnership and redesign the model. And in terms of the benefits area particularly, we were able to pay benefits out a lot quicker and a lot more without so much sort of clunk. There weren't any customer complaints. But basically what Civica have done is they've redesigned the process so that when Denbighshire now take it back in, it will be a more slick process, and Civica made the savings initially, or Denbighshire made the savings initially, and now they're going to make more savings. So it really is although at first it seems a little bit, it's a real win-win for Denbighshire. And the other thing to say is Civica is primarily a software business, and what they've done is, with artificial intelligence and everything in that area, they want to focus you know, their main drive in that area. So it's nothing to do with anything in terms of economies of scale even. It's to do with a change in strategy for Civica as a business, and a lot of the outsourcing businesses are going down similar routes.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you. Tony, please.
Yeah, thanks, Lee. I'll just turn my camera off just for the bandwidth. Been a few problems this morning. It's good to have the insurance, because whenever I have a query with them and you ring them up, but it's usually somebody from down south if you explore with them where they are, like, you know, so it's good to have that reassurance that the 2P, even with people that possibly living down there, will be effective, because we all appreciate with the COVID thing how transferable skills our Denbighshire staff have been over the last 2 years. So that's really good. But my question is, I just want an assurance, please, with Real Bid, and I probably need to declare an interest as I'm Vice Chair of Real Bid, that Real Bid uses the services and that Denbighshire will look after them, so they will see nothing untoward happening with their contract. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Paul or Deb?
I think I can probably speak on behalf of everybody on that one. In terms of any contractual obligation would also transfer across automatically, as the Real Bid are a customer in the same way that any of our other customers are our customers.
Yeah. Okay, that's clear. Hill, please.
Diolch yn Eirydd, thank you, Leader. I think however many years ago it was, I was on the backbenchers questioning the move to Civica, and I was told then by Paul McGrady that it was basically the best thing to slice bread and we will never regret it. I think the reality is that Civica sold us that they were the experts in local government doing this, and they got us on board that way. They also have taken the cream of the staff that we had at that time and turned them over. Yeah, Debbie says they very may well have looked at the processes, and probably we've had some best practice from Civica, but the reality is now that we're going to save £1 million in a year coming back in. So obviously, you know, whatever our needs were at that time, maybe it wasn't the right thing to do when we look at it. However, it's in the past. It's done. This is the right thing to do now because we are saving money, and we're probably going to be slicker than we were before. I think we haven't seen as many errors in the last 5 years of billing, and how many times would we come to council and a load of council tax billing had gone out, it had gone wrong, or something had happened. What we need to ensure, though, is that the transition back in is slick, and I'm sure Paul has got that under control, because we've seen during this pandemic how invaluable this service has been to businesses and distributions of grants. And I tell you, the difference that has made compared to other local authorities has been huge, and it's also saved a lot of businesses from going under. So as far as I'm concerned, if we're saving money, I don't give two hoots if it's in or out of a house, as long as the services to Denbighshire residents is right. And that is the fundamental important thing here. So for me, if we're saving money and we're cracking on and get the job done and doing right for residents, it gets the green flag from me.
Okay, was there a question there, Hill?
No, I just felt I'd say something because I hadn't done for a while.
Good. Okay, it was nearly all good, that, Hill.
Well, I'll take Hugh's introduction there about dealing with grants and supporting businesses, as just to be able to plug the team again anyway, because obviously you're aware there's the new grant that went live last week, and we've today processed the first payment run with just shy of £800,000. You know, is winging its way to businesses as we speak. Yeah. So that's just another example of the work that they're doing.
Yeah. Just to note, you know, the decision we're making today, if we make it the right recommendation, is the right one to do, and the decision we made in 2014 was the right decision to make at that time as well. Mm. And you could argue it's been proved right because the service has been improved, and the customer has seen an improvement in the service provided. So if we gauge what's been provided by customer satisfaction. I think customers have benefits from this, and we were well placed to roll out Welsh Government business support from a pretty high level of performance, which was really helpful and assuring to the businesses as well. So it's about aligning the decision to the pressures or the decisions required at the time, isn't it? So what's required today is different to what was required in 2014. But I'm just pleased that the report is very clear with the options that have been considered to get to where we are. Okay, any other questions from Cabinet members? No? Okay, I'll open up. Paul, please. Paul Pennington.
Sorry, Chair. That was an old hand. I was going to ask about safeguarding the staff, really, because, as you know, a lot of them were tupied over from us originally. I would just like to know that they're safe, because even though it's a long time down the line, we still have some sort of moral responsibility for them, I think.
Yeah, my understanding is
the intention, Chair, would be that that all relevant staff would tupi over accordingly. There's always some discussions around the edges of people who partially work for the partnership and things like that. So that will be where some of the debates and negotiations will come in. But yes, the bulk of the staff who've been working on the contract is quite clear, and they would tupi across accordingly.
Okay, Paul. Yeah, okay. Mary, please.
Diolch eto, Parchus Gadeirydd. Jyst ambell i beth o fama. Edrych ar dewis 2 a dewis 3, tudalen 41. Dwi'n gweld dim sôn am y gynnwys y gallu weithio trwy'r Gymraeg. Achos dwi'n cofio chydig o flynyddoedd yn ôl efo un math yma o gontract, cafwyd problem gyda contract nwy yn Lerpwl, sef adra yn y tai. Ond o'n i'n gweld dim byd o fama i ddangos bod rhaid i'r cwmni fedru siarad a trafod yn Gymraeg. Tudalen 42, penawd 6, roedd yn fewn o flynyddoedd yn ôl fel da ni wedi clywed. Ac diolch i Bobby Feely a Hugh Hildrich hefyd am ei hanes y newid fu adeg honno. O dan adra 9, o'n i dreswm am fynd at Civic ar y pryd i gael nhw rhatach. Beth ddigwyddodd i'w gwneud nhw'n ddrytach, achos mae'n ymddangos wam bod mi fasan nhw ddrytach beth bynnag. Ac tudalen 43, penawd 8, deunawdd y Hydref 2021, ond nid oedd amser i graffu ers hynny. Da ni wedi bod drwy Tachwedd a Rhagfyr yndo. Mae'n Ionawr rwan. Da chi'n deud ynglyn â craffu, nad o'n ddim amser. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch, Meirig. Ynglyn â'r ateb i'r cwestiwn cyntaf, sy'n ni'n gobeithio a disgwyl hefyd na os mae'r Cabinet yn mynd i cefnogi'r opsiwn 5, bod nhw dod o dan polisi iaith y sir. So sy'n ni'n gweld bod yna problem o fanes, a mae'n rhywbeth dwi wedi methu a neu gofyn wrth Steve Gadd jyst i cyfro hwnna pan mae'n ateb y cwestiwn ar y cyllid. Pan oedd o'n ddrud a beth yw'r gwahaniaeth.
Diolch yn fawr.
Craffu hefyd. Steve or Julian, do you want to come in first, Julian, or do you want Steve to go straight into the answers?
Julian, you happy for me to just
answer? Yeah, sorry, yes, Steve, go on if you want to kick off.
You want to do the scrutiny point there?
Yep.
So the Welsh language issue, I think, is bringing it back in-house actually makes that stronger. When it's back in-house, it's obviously our own Welsh language policy. Now, actually, when it was in Civica, it was also liable to the Welsh language policy for the external facing stuff. So everything had to be in Welsh and English, all the letters, etc. But I think bringing it in-house just strengthens that, make sure we've got control over that. So I think that's just another positive, really, of bringing it back in-house.
Steve,
you're breaking up badly, Steve.
Contracts and things.
We can't see you, Steve. We can't see you, Steve. There's no point you trying. I might ask Paul to.
People were willing to go with those talks. But I think,
Steve, You might have to switch off and come back in. We didn't understand a word, that one. Paul, I don't know if you could cover...
Paul, are you able to pick up the financial elements?
Sorry, could you repeat the financial elements? I didn't catch the question that was asked, sorry.
The financial elements was that we were assured that it would be there would be savings of going into Civica all those years ago.
Yeah.
The perception, or it might be a reality, that it's cost more than we were really advised at the beginning. Is that right?
Yes, Steve would need to clarify the figures in there because unfortunately I wasn't involved in the contract at the setup at the beginning. But my understanding was the savings were made at the beginning of the contract, and the expectation is that the savings that are forecast in the paper would be made at this stage at the exit of the contract, if that makes sense. So my understanding is there were savings that were made at the beginning of the contract.
Yeah, just to clarify that, I think judging my memory, so don't quote me on it, but it was somewhere in the region around about a £200,000 budget. Saving was made at the beginning of the contract.
Yeah.
So it obviously over. Oh, Steve just put the note up, and it was 200,000. So my memory is not too bad. And in fact, we took an additional 100,000 as well, which I had forgotten. So thank you, Steve, for putting that note up there. So actually, we made a £300,000 overall budget saving out of the contract at the beginning. Plus, we de-risked everything. Because Civica essentially funded the upgrades to the software packages and all the rest of it, which we would otherwise have had to have funded. And when a public meeting here, so I probably don't want Civica hearing this. So the fact is, essentially they've made the savings for us and put the service in a position where now that it is going to, or we're recommending that it comes back in-house. We would be able to make additional savings on top of the savings which have already been made at the beginning. It's rare where you can make savings at both ends of a contract.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, you did have another question. Sorry, Marek, and I've forgotten it. I do apologise.
The scrutiny element. Has this been scrutinised, or there seems to be a gap in the scrutiny of this?
I mean, clearly it's a function of the council, even when it was being carried out by a third party. So it's open. There hasn't been a request for us to come to scrutiny with regards to this. Clearly, this interim first couple of months, we've been working up the options to put in front of Cabinet to take it forward. I'm sure officers and myself are more than happy to slot in if scrutiny want to actually look at this. But I think if you go from the options appraisals, you see that it's a very strong and very clear recommendation that there really is only one viable alternative at this moment in time. I don't know whether if that answers the question or not.
Yeah, Meirig.
Os gael jyst ddod yn ôl am eiliad ynglyn â'r ateb ola, sef rhif 8, tudalen 43 yn yr adroddiad. Os ydych chi'n deud os yna neb di alw o fewn, wel pwy o'n gwybod bod chi'n deud hyn neu bod hyn yn digwydd? Gawson ni wybod do, mewn e-bost neu rhywbeth, dwi'm yn cofio, gweld dim tan weles i hwn. Dyna un peth.
Yes, I sent an email to all members. Before Civica announced it to their staff, I advised members, I can't remember exactly when it was, about November time, I sent an email to all members to notify them.
Oh, diolch yn fawr.
And to say that we would be working up alternatives and bringing it back to Cabinet in the new year.
Diolch yn fawr. Mae hwnna'n ddoeth iawn. Ynglyn â'r Gymraeg, be oedden ni'n ceisio ddangos oedd, a does gen i'n problem efo fo'n dod i mewn, mae'n siŵr o fod yn well o ran y Gymraeg, oedd nad oedd yr adroddiad ynglyn â'r cwmnïau eraill fysa chi'n gallu mynd atyn nhw, do'n na ddim sôn fysa rhaid i nhw weithio drwy'r Gymraeg. Dyna o'n i'n trio ddeud yn fanno. Diolch yn fawr chi, Mr Cadeirydd.
Diolch Meirig yn fanna. Iawn, sy'n e mwy o cwestiwn? Hugh?
Can I just come back on a couple of things with Meirig? And Julian, correct me if I'm wrong, but I recall that when this first went over to Civica, it was in scrutiny because I think I was chairing the scrutiny, if I remember rightly.
Yeah.
So the transition was assessed quite vigorously by scrutiny, and I think fundamentally, Meirig, why is there a saving now? Well, Civica no longer have the local authorities on their books. So therefore, we will be, you know, that we would be the number one, the only one. Therefore, the cost of looking after us on their own is probably going to be higher. So that's the reality of why the saving is such. Yeah.
Diolch yn fawr.
Okay, thank you. No more questions on this?
Rhys and Alan have got their hands up, Chair.
Sorry, Rhys. Yeah, go on, Rhys.
Annie. Diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd. Dwi'n mynd I droi'r camera I ffwrdd achos mae'r signal yn wan iawn bore yma. I don't think that I or any members of the Plaid Cymru group have a problem with this proposal this morning because it's something that we would welcome. It's one of our policies, and you never know, it might be the first of many services that are brought back in-house. I'm not saying that just for any political effect. The research that I've done shows that many large English local authorities have for a number of years been bringing services back in-house. I think the quote was that the savings made from outsourcing have probably been made. And it may well be that we're slightly behind the curve on this one, but I welcome everything that I've heard this morning. One small point, and maybe for future thought, I understand that Civica are based at Russell House, and I'm just wondering whether that puts the future of Russell House at a certain amount of risk. I'm not sure whether that's the question Alan is going to ask, but I'm sure that will require further thought in the next months and years. Okay, diolch yw. Thank you.
Okay, Julian, if you can just hold on to that particular last question there, and I'll ask Alan to come in case it's the same one.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks very much for the opportunity. Yes, that was one of the questions I was going to ask, and if I can just ask another question. In the termination of this contract, is there going to be a cost to us as a local authority in any way at all? You did say that Civica had invested quite a substantial amount in perhaps we ought to go mute on this, but quite a substantial amount of money in technology and so on. Presumably that is ours, and when the termination of the contract is complete, there'll be no cost to us. And is there any penalty on Civica for withdrawing this contract? And is there implications then for our legal team and the costs in terms of all of that? So thanks very much. I hope that makes sense. Thanks, Chair, and thanks, staff.
That's joined up with Rhys. Julian, do you want to?
Yeah, I probably will be looking to officers on some of the more technical elements there. As I say, obviously, we haven't formally commenced negotiations with Civica yet, so what the final terms of that will obviously need to be determined. In terms of would there be any penalties? Clearly, it was their decision to withdraw from the partnership arrangement, not ours. They are clearly willing, if necessary, to let it run until its expiry date in March 25. It's in our interests to bring that period when we hand it over as best we can, and that will form part of, no doubt, of the ongoing negotiations. In terms of Russell House, well, at the moment they're all working from home still, so they're all based wherever they happen to be residing. But Russell House obviously is the nominal base for the service, and that would continue in the short term and medium term probably. Clearly, with the changes that'll be coming online, maybe to how we operate, you know, in the medium to longer term. That will be part of the new ways of working program of work, and it may well be that's at some time in the future something that there was a different option open to us, but clearly in the short to medium term, it would just continue as is once things return to normality, if they ever do. Paul, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Just to concur,
Yeah.
yeah, we wouldn't expect any additional costs on sort of finishing the contract early, because it would be advantageous to Civica to do so, and it's something they'd be keen to do. So yeah, we're not envisaging any form of cost towards the end of the contract at all, sort of termination fee. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, just quickly, if I can come in there, just for assurance, really, as part of the contract, Civica are contractually obliged to achieve the key performance indicators. So how long it takes to process a benefit claim, etc. So if for any reason through the end of the contract and when it's transitioning over, Civica failed to meet any of the KPIs, there would be service credit implications to Civica, which would obviously mean they would owe Denbighshire money. So it's in Civica's best interest to continue the service until the transition is done smoothly. And again, because Civica want to end, it should be a seamless transition, because everybody is after the same ultimate goal. So I don't see any loss in service, but for the members to rest assured, if there was, then Civica would be contractually obliged for penalties.
Okay, that's good. Thank you for that. And the answers were clear. We'll move on now to the recommendation, please. Julian, could you take us through the recommendation?
Yeah, I'm just scrolling back up, just bear with me. Okay, so the recommendations are 3.1, the Cabinet review and consider the options outlined and evaluated in this paper in relation to a new services delivery model for the Revenues and Benefits Service. And 3.2, to endorse the recommendations made by the project team, allowing DCC officers to have the authorization to commence negotiations and engagement with Civica and other parties in order to progress the recommendation of bringing the Revenues and Benefits Service back into DCC in an effective transformation with no adverse impact on service delivery and in an acceptable timeframe.
Thank you, Julian. You've moved that.
I'll move that. Yeah. Yeah.
Is everybody in agreement with this? Anybody against? Okay, that's been moved. Thank you, Julian. You're on a roll. Agenda item 8, housing rent setting and housing revenue and capital budgets 2022 to 23. Julian, this is your day, Julian. It looks like.
Yes, I'm afraid we're all going to be sick of it, including me, sick of the sound of my voice by the end of today. Yes, so I've got Jeff here to bail me out if I'm giving any bad advice here, Jeff Davis. Okay, so there were 2 elements to the report that's in front of you today. The first one is in terms of approval of the budget for 22-23 and of the updated housing stock business plan. And the second element is to approve the setting of the rental figures for the next 12-month period. Appendix 1 to your report details the outturn figures for the current financial year, which are in line with those figures which I present on a monthly basis as part of the finance report. Also contained within Appendix 1 is the proposed budget for next financial year 22-23, which allows us to deliver our revenue services, our capital program for both our existing and new build schemes. One thing, as is noted in the report, to flag up, we are obviously aware that going forward there will be some significant costs in terms of achieving the decarbonisation and carbon zero agenda in relation to our housing stock. One other piece of information on this, local authorities are now able to bid for social housing grants alongside the RSLs, although I ought to point out that the pot is no bigger, so it just means that there are more people potentially bidding into that fund. You'll also see that the business plan, as we always do, is updated on an annual basis to ensure that it's still viable. We've confirmed that that actually is the case. If we turn to the rental elements, Welsh Government announced a 5-year policy on rent setting a couple of years ago now for all social landlords. And that was based on an annual increase of CPI plus 1% based upon the CPI figure on the previous September. There was a caveat with regards to that, that there was ministerial control over that if the CPI figure increased over 3%. At that point in time, of course, it had been well below 3% for a number of years. Clearly, as we know, inflation has increased, and the September rate that would come into force is actually a 3.1%. So the ministerial recommendation on this, there will be no additional uplift on top of that, and the only increase would be the 3.1% representing CPI. That would mean that the average weekly rent would increase to £97.27 per week, an increase of on average £2.92 from last year's figures. You'll also hopefully remember a few years back now, we disaggregated the service charges from the actual rental figures, and the service charge figure would increase to £2.23 per week from £2.14 per week. One of the key elements to this is contained within Appendix 3, in that we have to assess for our tenants against 3 areas, one being affordability, one being value for money, and the other one cost effectiveness. All of these have, including the rental incomes, have been discussed with the tenants forum. Whilst nobody's obviously jumping up and down as a thought of an increase, they do fully understand what the position is, and that we have to ensure that we actually get in enough income in order to be able to cover off inflation and our ability to invest in our stock and build accordingly. In terms of affordability, the rental figures are compared and compare very favourably with the private sector and RSLs. In terms of value for money, in the latest tenant survey, there's I think it's, I haven't got the figure in front of me, I think it was around about 85% approval rating from our tenants, something in that region anyway, in terms of how they felt about the value for money that we provided. And we also provide through the service a pretty wide-ranging package of support that we have available for tenants. We've got obviously staff engage with anyone who unfortunately start to get into arrears. We don't adopt any sort of threatening approach. We don't send Jeff around with a baseball bat. We offer independent advice. We can access financial support where applicable. And we work with other teams within the authority, whether that may be social services, youth services, in order to put together an appropriate package of support. And of course, we don't evict anybody as a result of arrears either. And just one final point in the support element to mention that we work very closely with colleagues in Citizens Advice Denbighshire, and they have a dedicated officer who works on that point of view. And similarly, we work with our colleagues in the working Denbighshire team, who have a dedicated post for tenants to access support through that course of action. So hopefully that will give members some assurance that that we do work, and hopefully work very effectively with our tenants to mitigate any issues that they may have. So I don't know, Liz or Jeff, whether you wanted to add anything before we go to questions, or I've missed anything out there.
No, like I say, I think from the budget point of view, Steve's service obviously look after us really well. As you can see, the majority of our money gets spent on our homes, which is absolutely right. There is a small amount that I spend on our services to our tenants, but obviously Dave and Mark, who were in the meeting earlier, very much a lot of the investment is in our homes and in our stock, and that's what we're trying to do really. Julian's, I won't repeat what Julian said, but I'm very reluctant always to increase rents for our tenants, but it's really important to me that we use the money well. So I think the graphs that we show that we do use our money efficiently, and Dave and Mark, who you've seen, spend it well and are always looking at ways to make sure we're more efficient, so that tenants understand that. And I think tenants can see the improvement in their homes. They've told us that in the surveys we do. 85% say they get value for money from their rent, which for me is fantastic. I'd like it to be 100%, but we always accept that's always going to be difficult to achieve. And I think from our point of view, obviously it's a very difficult time for people, but it's the bigger picture. This rent increase, whilst it's a few pound a week to each individual household, it's £500,000 to our business plan every year, and it's every year forevermore if we don't increase. And we are conscious that CPI at 3.1% in September is now 5.1%, and it could go up or down. I understand that. So just from my point of view, yes, absolutely understand it is difficult. We do support tenants. We're probably changing our terminology that we don't evict into homelessness. So what we don't want to do is evict a council tenant and they end up going into the homeless department and causing the authority a lot of money elsewhere. So, but we do take action. But like Julian says, they don't send me around threatening people. Not that, I don't think that would work anyway. But we have got a very supportive approach, and it is working. Our arrears have taken a bit of a hit since COVID and universal credit, but overall, our tenants are managing well. So, like I say, I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Jeff and Julian. Okay, I'll open up to questions from cabinet members. Tony, please.
Yeah, thanks, leader. Yeah, thanks for that, Julian, Jeff, and Liz. Yeah, it is really, as lead on housing, it is very assuring the relationship that Denbighshire has with its tenants. And one of the things that I would like you, I know all about it, but a year ago we purchased a software package which, shall we say, helps to identify tenants that where they might be getting into trouble. I think that's a very good package, and whilst I know about it, I'd just like maybe Jeff's the expert on that, whether he could assure the councillors what benefits that we're getting for that, and how it's improving, shall we say, relationships with the tenants. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Yeah, it's a rental income bit of software that complements our main housing management system. And I think, to be fair, it uses several million, because this product Mobisoft is used by lots of other registered social landlords and local authorities. So it uses clever sort of data analytics and whatever to predict often when people are going to go into arrears, because sometimes it's that pattern of behaviour that when we're dealing with potentially lots of caseload of people in arrears, housing officers need that little bit of extra help sometimes to say something's changed in someone's household that could affect them. So it has worked, it's literally about £40,000 a year. I can be open about how much it cost us, but it's certainly, we think it's mitigated that much, if not more, in arrears reduction, and it's also probably reduced our arrears for that amount as well. But more importantly, it saved staff time, which means they've got more time to spend with people. It's not that we've been able to get rid of staff or whatever, it's just that they've got more. We always need more staff because they're always doing more and more for people, but it just means we've got more staff time to invest in these cases and support people more. So it has been a success. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Any other questions from cabinet members? No? Okay, thank you for that. Can I just say as well, it's the balance, isn't it? It's trying to keep rent increases as low as possible, because the affordability of that in the present climate, we need to be, and we are very aware of that, but the need to reinvest is really important so that our housing stock is keeping up with the standards expected. And I think we do have a duty to our tenants to try and provide the best facilities that we can. So it's getting the balance right is quite difficult. And I do think that you've got in this report that we've kept the rental increase to a minimum, but we're still continuing to improve facilities, which I think is really good. Okay, I'll open up to members. Mary, please.
Diolch yn fawr iawn unwaith eto. I fod yn deg, dwi'n meddwl bod y swyddogion y bore yma wedi ymateb dda iawn I amryw o gwestiynau o gynna I ar dudalen 53. Mae'n biti na fasa'r atebion yna ddim yn yr adroddiad dweud y gwir, mi fasa wedi bod yn gymorth dwi'n siŵr. Hynny ynglyn â fforddiadwyedd ein rhenti wythnosol, sut da ni'n mynd I drin bobl sydd yn methu talu. Ond tybed llai ofyn, faint o gyflog fe asa'n talu'r rhent, ys gynna ni rhyw syniad am fwyd, am drydan, gwersogi'r tŷ cyngor, a mwynderau eraill dros ben hynny, sef plant i'r ysgol a teithio ac yn y blaen. Yda ni wedi edrych I mewn I gwmpas faint fas angen o gyflog I dalu y costau yma. A faint o bobl sydd ar gymorth dal, ydyn nhw'n 100% o'n tenantiaid ni, neu lai. A wedyn troi I tudalen 57, lle mae'r fantolen, mae'n ffigwr arwylod y fantolen yn y coch, a dwi byth yn cofio os ydych chi'n rhoi yn y coch, ydy o yn arian wrth law neu ydy o'n golled. Wrach y trysorydd yn helpu fi pan bod o mewn coch I gychwyn ac yn y blaen. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Diolch, Meirig.
Gai ddatgan hefyd, o'n i'n sylwi yn y fantolen, da chi'n sôn am fodurdau, a dwi yn rhentu rhai gan y cyngor, felly dwi'n arfer datgan diddordeb am odi, ond di o ddim byd I wneud hefo adroddiad heddiw, dwi'n meddwl. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch, Meirig, a minute. Jeff, do you want to respond to those couple of questions?
Do you want me to, Chair, just down?
Steve, yes.
So the question, yeah, sorry, am I working okay now?
Yes, I can hear.
I can see and hear you at the moment, Steve. Yeah.
Translocated to a different room. It seems to be working better. So, yeah. So yes, you're right. It's in red, just because that's what Excel does with negative figures. If you put it on accountancy mode, I'm colorblind, so I can't see it anyway. So it's no use to me. But yeah, it just shows that it's a negative figure. So it's a credit. So it's our balances. So it's our balances carried forward, which means they are available. We have a policy on our balances to keep it at least £1 million. And obviously with what's happened with COVID is actually we've carried a bit more on our balances because we still want to spend it on capital. So we still want to spend that money. So, but we've had a bit of delay, as we've talked about before, with some of the works that have been able to be done, especially at the beginning of COVID. But I'm happy, and you know, obviously I have to do a CFO statement for this, and I'm comfortable with the level of balances both now and what we're predicting going forward over the 30-year housing stock business plan.
Okay, thanks, Steve, for that.
Yeah, with regards to the affordability, yeah, I mean, absolutely. This is, I mean, the reason we haven't put this in detail in the report is it's every household is different, and it is very difficult to measure every house. I mean, it's actually 72% of our households now get some help with housing costs, which has gone up. Pre sort of COVID, it was 2/3, about 63, 64%, but it has gone to 72% now, which means that they get either through universal credit or housing benefit, any rent increase will be absorbed by the support that they get. Obviously with the other 28%, they're the cohort we're particularly concerned about, because they're the ones who've got the additional costs, and we know there's lots of changes with fuel, which is well documented, and national insurance, council tax, and everything else. Like I say, with affordability is generally measured with housing costs, you know, nationally across the UK, as somebody shouldn't be spending around more than 30% of their gross income so on their housing costs. And obviously, I think in most cases, if somebody was paying less than that. It depends on your housing circumstances in your family. A single person living alone in a big house would really struggle. So we do move those people and give them priority to move them to something smaller and more suitable for them, if that's the case. Generally, with our rent levels at the moment, around £18,000 a year is what you'd need to afford that 30% limit of 30% of your gross income. But people generally, if you've got children, for example, and you're earning that, you would fall into universal credit sort of parameters. So like I say, it's difficult because it's very difficult. We do look at the private sector, we look at local housing allowance rates, which pays housing benefit, and we look at the very, very lower quartile, and we're about 80% of that lower quartile of the private sector rents. So in theory, somebody living in a council house, a 3-bedroom council house at £105 a week, could be living next door to somebody in exactly the same house with a private landlord who's paying 135 a week. So we always make sure we keep those, and I always compare with other councils and other housing associations because I like to be better than them. But you know, ultimately we are there or thereabouts now, but we're definitely not more, we're slightly less on the whole than the other, and we try and provide, you know, certainly as good a service, if not better, where we can. So, and certainly, you know, we hope we're more supportive than private landlords, but, and like the leader said, it's absolutely important that tenants, we send a newsletter out with our rent increase notices to say, yes, it's bad news, but it's about investing in our stock over time. You know, our stock is quite old now, it's 70, 80 years old. We're constantly having to invest because they become more expensive to heat over time. We're very much aware of that, and the climate change emergency. So we are investing significantly now in our stock to make sure that we can make, for me, you know, that deal with that fuel poverty issue, and that's making sure that our homes are more energy efficient and cheaper to heat and warmer. Hope that answers the question.
Os ga I ddiolch am y ddau ymateb sydd yn ardderchog, yn arbennig ynglyn â faint o gyflog was angen. Oeddwn ni o dan yr argraff, am o fi'n hen ddyn ebyn hyn, bod tai cyngor I gynorthwyo'r bobodlota. A dyna oedd y syniad gwreiddiol, dwi'n meddwl, gyn Eton neu Macmillan oedd o, ia, i'r werin bobl. Ond mae'n ymddangos wwan bod Llywodraeth Ganolog wedi newid y syniad, a mae eisiau bobl dalu'n llawn am eu cartre, ac dwi'n meddwl bod hynny'n golled fawr. Ddyle bod y cartrefi yma, fasai'm isio arian ychwanegol wedyn i'w cynorthwyo nhw, petai'r rhent yn resymol o ran eu cyflog nhw. Diolch yn fawr am yr ymatebion ardderchog. Diolch, Arweinydd.
Diolch, Meirig. Gwyneth, please.
Diolch yn fawr, Gadeirydd. Dwi'n gwerthfawrogi'n fawr yr atab gafon ni gan Jeff rwan, ond yn yr amgylchiadau ar hyn o bryd, dwi'n teimlo bod ti'n anghywir.
Gwyneth, ti'n mynd i roed y sgrif, please, da ni'n clywed ti. Sori, munud. Diolch.
Na, mae'n iawn. O'n i'n meddwl sy'n ni'n trio fo'r camera ymlaen, ond reit, deud nes i, o'n i'n gwerthfawrogi'r atab gafon ni gan Jeff rwan, ond o dan yr amgylchiadau presennol, dwi ddim yn teimlo bod ti'n iawn yn bod ni'n codi'r rhent tai cyngor. Felly, o'n i eisiau gofyn pa asesiad sydd wedi cael ei wneud o be fysa'n digwydd petai ni ddim yn codi'r rhent. Fysa ni'n gallu delio efo hynny, sgynno ni arian wrth gefn mwyn gallu gwneud hynny. Dwi'n meddwl bod o reit bwysig yn y cyfnod rwan. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch, Gwyneth. Jeff, would you like to respond to that, please, if we didn't raise the rents, the implications there?
I mean, yeah, it's a good point. I mean, I think for me, the Welsh Government set the 3.1% as a maximum. I mean, in the past, we've been here with CPI plus 1%. And I think the fact that Welsh Government have just said this year, the maximum we can increase is just 3.1%. I think it would have been harder to sit here now and ask for the plus 1%. Like I said, Dave and Mark were talking earlier about a lot of our costs, whether it's temporarily or more permanent, going through the roof. And I think it would take quite a detailed assessment because CPI is currently 5.1%. So we know a 3.1% increase is probably not keeping us up with pace, the pace with costs, but I appreciate that can fluctuate. And I think, you know, obviously from my point of view, the rent 3.1% is worth just over £500,000 a year to us. So that's a lot of, you know, money to be spent on properties. And then obviously I'm absolutely a housing person and very much on the side of our tenants first and foremost. But I think from the business plan point of view, if we don't increase for that £500,000 this year, next year it'll be another £500,000. And we look at our 30-year business plan of wanting to build new homes, which is not necessarily just about growth. Building new homes is about building better homes that are more suitable for the times and replacing some of the stuff that we built 70, 80, 90 years ago now, that's probably not fit for purpose anymore. So it's just the fact that we've got 3,500 homes, assets that we've got to look at. It sort of outweighs the fact that, yes, we've looked at affordability, yes, we've looked at how we compare to other people, and we do compare favourably. So we are comfortable with the rent increase, but it is basically, if we don't increase rents, it's £500,000 this year and every year forevermore in our business plan that we can't then get back to invest in our homes, if that answers the question.
Gwyneth, dyna'n helpu?
Yes, thanks, Jeff. It does help, but you didn't address, or maybe you're not the person to address my question regarding, can we mitigate that from reserves or something along those lines?
Do you want me to come in there?
Yes. Steve Gard, please.
Yeah, sorry, can you hear me? Yeah. Yeah, Jeff's hit the nail on the head really. With what this increase does is give us 500 grand a year forever. We can't get this back, even more so than the council tax, which we'll be talking about later, because we can't just increase this. If in 5 years' time we saw a detrimental impact on our housing quality, and we needed to invest more, we couldn't just then go and increase, and we wouldn't want to, but we certainly couldn't by law increase rent by a significant amount like some councils have done with council tax. But if we don't increase this year by the recommended amount or by the allowed amount by Welsh Government, we will never be able to, we've lost that money. So it is important we keep up with these incremental changes, and I know it's an impact on tenants, and that's obviously for other people to advise on whether they think that's affordable, etc. But from a financial point of view, it's that ongoing impact that has that ability for us to plan on a 30-year basis to invest in our housing stock and make sure that the housing stock is up to a really good standard and meet the carbon agenda, etc. So reserves won't do that. As I've pointed out earlier, that it's the 1.7 million we've got currently in reserve in HRA. So that would only cover a couple of years worth of this loss. And as I said, this loss is for 30 years or forever. This 500k is a recurring 500k that we'd lose, so that we can't use reserves for that. The other point is that we need to keep those reserves at a minimum level. So it's only just above the minimum level now. So actually we haven't got all that reserve that we could throw at this either. So for those reasons, really, I fully support the increase from a financial perspective.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that, Steve. Liz, did you want to add?
Yes. Yes, please. Just wanted to add a couple of points. With regard to our existing tenants, we want to help support them to maximise their income. So that's why we contract with CAD. That's why we work with Working Denbighshire, so that we can support people to increase their income into their household, because we think that for them, that's the best way that they can maintain their resilience. So that's why we invest some of their rent into those extra services to support them. In addition, we do feel the responsibility to try to expand the number of houses we have in our stock, because of the pressures we have. You all are familiar with regard to the numbers of homelessness in Denbighshire, and also the number of people who are on the social housing waiting list. So we want to take really good care of our existing tenants, but we also need to have an eye on what more we can do to support those people who aren't yet our tenants, to be able to provide new and better housing, and more access to housing from them. And also in terms of our investment in new stock. As you know, we're hopefully going to be having our new passive house standard houses ready this year, which will have a lifetime benefit to our residents in terms of addressing fuel costs. So it's quite a complex situation. We're constantly walking on a tightrope and trying to get the balance right, and trying to put as little pressure as possible on our tenants, but accepting that we have a business that we have to run and do the best we can to our residents.
Okay, thank you for that. It's been a good debate on this, and we've been questioning quite a few elements of the report. So I'm happy now to come to the recommendation, please, Julian. Please. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, yes, I was going to say that.
I think well to sorry, please.
Okay. I've got a couple of questions for Jeff, if that's okay, Chair.
Yes, go on, Riz. Yeah, fine.
Right. The first one, I apologise if it's in the documents and I've missed it. What is approximately the number of client or the number of tenants in debt at the moment, or the percentage that are not keeping up with paying rent to Denbighshire? That was the first one. The second one, does not the housing budget, has it not had Lodge Farm being sold? Is that not help the reserve of the housing budget? So has that money been paid in, and is that in reserve? And the third point, it's not a question. In my work with the third sector in the area, I've heard very good things said about the housing employment mentor. So I'd like that passed on to that person, please. So 2 questions. Diolch, Jeff.
Yeah,
Chris.
Jeff, please.
Yeah, just in regards to the third one, I mean, it's very different. I mean, at any one time, we've got about a quarter of our tenants are in arrears, but it's often one of the challenges for us, which is where Mobisoft does help us, as Tony mentioned earlier, is it's a weekly tenancy still in law, but most people live monthly. And yes, we try and get people to pay 4 weeks in advance so they're never in arrears. But it's one of the challenges we've got is with all people, even working people who pay absolutely without fail, can often be 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks in arrears when they pay at the end of the month. Like I say, overall, you know, we monitor very closely our rent arrears, and I thought there was a graph in the final in Appendix 3. Yes, there is at near the end, which shows you know, we monitor our arrears closely, and we are below the Welsh average. You know, we're 3.6%, and Welsh local authorities are 4.2% of money owed. So we are, you know, confident that Denbighshire tenants are doing okay and they're not struggling unnecessarily. I think with regard to the capital receipts that come into the HRA, it is a significantly complex budget, the HRA. I mean, there's Steve will confirm this. I mean, his team are absolutely brilliant. It's over £90 million of borrowing. So the borrowings fluctuate slightly every year, and obviously that's got to be funded as well. My concern is always that, you know, the more we have to fund borrowing, the less there is available each year for services and for investing in properties. So it is a significant balance. Like I say, we've got a significant house building programme for the reasons that Liz mentioned. You know, we need to build new homes because we've got such high demand. We do need to grow, but also, you know, we do need to sort of replace some of our much older stock as well, where it would investment probably wouldn't help it. Thankfully, they're quite small in numbers. But I will also mention that, you know, Welsh Government have been brilliant in terms of social housing grant. There's more available for us now, and there is a certain amount earmarked to us as well as a local authority, which is good. It means we don't have to compete as much with other landlords. The competition's more for the land and the opportunities, really. But I hope that gives you some reassurance.
Okay, thank you. I thought I was bringing the debate on end, but there are 3 more questions now. So could I ask you just to ask the question, please, and we'll put them together so Jeff can answer the 3 together, please. Bobby first, please.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I don't know whether any of you, like me, has been following the shocking report ITV have been running about distressed tenants living, whether they be housing association or councils, living across, mainly across England, living in squalid conditions with homes riddled with damp and mold, leaks, collapsing ceilings. It's really been totally heartbreaking to watch. And I would hate, for the sake of a little under £3 a week increase now, I would hate to see Denbighshire in that situation. Fortunately, Denbighshire are way away from that. And I would like to commend housing in Denbighshire for the work they have done on improvements to all our housing stock, or, you know, they're getting across doing it. And I just feel a small increase on a yearly basis is fine as far as I'm concerned, compared with having tenants living in the most appalling conditions, as this report ITV have shown. So if you need a seconder, Tony, I'm happy to second the report.
Thank you, Bobby. There wasn't a question there, was it, Bobby? That's fine. Okay, Emrys, please.
Ie, no, dwi'n lot o dyn medrai, diolch yn fawr. Cwestiwn ydy o ar y sgôr effeithlonrwydd ynni yn tiny. Dwi'n dall erbyn 2025 mi fydd disgwyl I unrhyw dŷ sy'n cael ei osod fod gydag sgôr o ec fel effeithlonrwydd ynni. Ar hyn o bryd, dwi'n deall bod Casnewydd a Chaerdydd yn sgorio o gwmpas 49 a 46% o'r eiddo yn ec. Mae pegwn arall y wlad ydy, mae Gwynedd ac Ynys Môn yn sgorio 23-24% ar arfa ec. Ydy'r ffigwr ma ar gael heddiw, neu fedrai gael o yn y dyfodol ar gyfer y sgôr ar gyfer ni Sir Ddinbych, os gwelwch yn dda. A dyn ni mynd I allu cyrraedd y targed o gael bob eiddo sy'n ar rent ar sgôr ec erbyn 2025.
Diolch, Emrys. And finally, last question, Alan James, please. Alan, did you want to ask a question? No.
You're on mute, Alan.
It's all right. There's always one who gets it wrong, isn't there?
It's usually me.
Usually me. Just quickly, we know about all the pressures that tenants, well, all of us are likely to have in this coming year, with high costs of fuels and other increases, you know, the inflation rates going up. So presumably there potentially could be a greater pressure on our housing staff to support and other associated organisations that we work with. Probably a question that Jeff will smile at and hope it can go ahead. But are we sure that we have enough staff around in this department, in our housing department, to meet potentially the demands? Because people are going to need quite a lot of support by the way things are going on, aren't they? I know that the universal credits, well, we hope that they will be going up to meet some of the shortfall and all the other things, but we've already seen a £20 reduction in universal credits, which to a lot of people has created an awful lot of pressure. So I've just wondered what the feeling was generally within the county council about this, and how we support these our tenants that could be under great pressure, and pressure not only financially but pressure in their health as well, and all the other things that are associated with it. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Okay, Jeff, 2 questions there, please.
Yeah, I mean, just to comment on the first one, I think, you know, obviously disrepair, Welsh Government has been watching the ITV news and have asked us, or every council in Wales, for reassurance that we've got no issues like that. So we did send them a detailed report. There is lots of solicitors going around looking for disrepair claims. So thankfully, we've been generally immune from that so far. Maybe I shouldn't have said that publicly. But like I say, we're always monitoring. You know, we've got a STAR survey, for example, which is our survey of all tenants and residents. Sorry, I'll be quick, but we've had a massive response. We've had had 25% of households have responded in December and January. So we're very much clear about the state of our properties and the conditions, and making sure we understand fully. We monitor our complaints and all our performance as well quite closely. And I think the landlords there that have been the subject of these features, they'll be increasing their rents as well. And I think it's really important that if we're here today asking for a rent increase, that we show we spend it well and we use the money efficiently. And I think that comes to Alan's point as well. We constantly monitor our staffing costs and our other management costs against other landlords to make sure we're not being inefficient and we're using our money wisely. There is the risk there that we go for the cheaper, cheerful option and staff are under pressure. So one of the things that Liz has been keen on is if we are adequately resourced in terms of making sure we can be more supportive for tenants. So we have added another housing officer to the complement, which we're going to be recruiting soon as well. Just taking into account the fact that they need more, and people need more and support, particularly coming out of COVID as well. And in regard to the energy efficiency, over half of our properties meet that standard. We can give you more detailed reports on this, Emrys, but like I say, yes, this is one of the big areas of, we're not going to be able to afford it as we stand today, to be fair. I think all local authorities in Wales are saying the same. The decarbonisation agenda is significant for some older stock. So to get to every property to A, for example, is going to cost tens and tens of millions. So Welsh Government understand that, and they are going to support us on it through our major repairs allowance, which we still get. So it is a balance, like we keep saying, it is a balance in investing for our tenants now and in the future. But it is absolutely, our supportive approach is just making sure that our tenants can afford our homes, and they get a good service and they get good value for money in return.
Okay, thank you for that. And I'm bringing the debate to an end on this one. Is a really interesting subject, and hopefully a positive a service in terms of what we provide for our tenants. Okay, Julian, could you come to the recommendation, please?
Yes, of course. So the recommendations are 3.1, that the housing revenue account budget for 22-23 as contained in Appendix 1 and the housing stock business plan as in Appendix 2 be adopted. 3.2, that rents for council dwellings be increased in accordance with the Welsh Government policy for social housing rents to an average weekly rent of £97.27 with effect from the 4th of April 2022. 3.3, Cabinet are asked to note the additional report Appendix 3 on cost efficiencies, affordability and value for money prior to approving this rent increase. And 3.4, that Cabinet confirms it is read, understood and taken account of the wellbeing impact assessment in Appendix 4 as part of its considerations.
Thank you, Julian. That's been proposed. I think Bobby wanted to second you.
Yes, happy to second.
Yeah, happy. Everybody in agreement with this, are they? Is there anyone against? No, okay, that's been moved. Okay, should we have a 10 minutes break before we get to the next agenda item?
Please.
Back for 5 to 12. Back for 5 to 12. Okay, diolch. Thank you.
Chris.
Okay, it's nearly afternoon. 5 to 12. Are cabinet members coming back? Are they?
Raring to go, boss.
How many cabinet members have we got? 3. Richard, are you there? Brian? Is Brian there, is he?
Yeah, Brian's back.
Mark? You there, Mark?
Yeah, all here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
Bobby's here. And Richard, are you there, Richard? We're just waiting for Richard then. Who's here, isn't he? Yeah. Do we know if Richard's there or not? Okay, well, we'll have to kick off then. Okay, we'll move forward. Agenda item 9, the budget final proposals 2022-23. Julian, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Leader. Yes, these are the proposals that I'm putting before you, which hopefully that you will be able to approve to recommend on to full council next week. Just to give a little bit of background, I won't go through a lot of the work that we did on the assumptions that went out to all members, either following on from the budget workshop in December and my email just before Christmas. But we received the draft settlement from Welsh Government just prior to Christmas, as had been pretty heavily trailed up until then. It was a 3-year indicative budget, which is definitely a step forward, and we're very grateful for that. At least it gives us some sort of indications of what we're likely to be receiving in future years. The settlement for 22-23 was an uplift for Denbighshire of 9.2%. Slightly below the average, which was 9.4 for Wales. And for the subsequent 2 years, the indicative budgets were 3.5 and 2.4 average increases. So we would assume if it's roughly 0.2%, we're below this year. If we work on the same for the following 2 years, we'd be round about 3.3 and 2.2 for those subsequent years. So clearly, when we go beyond the 22-23 budget, Denbighshire will obviously be facing, as usual, some difficult decisions. This was quite an unusual settlement in my experience, in that it contained a significant number of quite large new responsibilities which had either previously been unfunded or been dealt with by other means other than the revenue support grant. And the 4 main ones that I would include within there are covering off of full payments for both teaching and non-teaching staff pay awards. And of course, the non-teaching pay award is yet to be agreed, so obviously it can only be worked on our best estimate of what we think that's likely to eventually materialise at. The second one is to incorporate the funding for bringing in the real living wage for social care staff, and that includes not only our own internal staff, but also administering the payments on behalf of the private sector operators as well. Members will also be aware of the new corporate joint committees, which will be commencing from next financial year, and for which the CJCs will be setting their own budget, and we need to cover our element of the core operational costs of those. And then finally, the other major one is that the COVID hardship fund, which Welsh Government has been administering over the last 2 years, and which we have drawn down upon, I think it was something in the region of 23 million the year before last, and we've claims in for around about 13 million for the current financial year. That COVID hardship fund ceases from the end of the current financial year, so as of 31st of March. And the intention is that there will be no additional funding, so we would need to mitigate any of those issues relating to the ongoing impacts of COVID on our budgets. And all of those, as you'll see, those are some pretty significant costs that are incorporated and rolled up within those 4 areas alone, which is why the settlement is at 9.2%, considerably higher than the sort of levels that we've been used to in the past. There were also around about 275,000 of genuine transfers into the budget, and you'll see those detailed in the report. And those will be passported on to services directly. In terms of the proposals that I would put before you for the budget, Chair, they are detailed in Appendix 1, which is an extract from the medium-term financial plan, and the summaries are contained on pages 77 and 78 to your report. You'll see all the breakdowns of all the pressures that we're proposing to fund there. I'll touch on a few of them. There are a number which we sort of the old reliables that we come up against every year in terms of pay, inflation, council tax reduction scheme, increases in the charge from the fire service. Those are normally part of the budget, but of course you'll see that the pay element is quite a significant uplift there, around about £3 million. In terms of schools, there were two elements there that we were addressing. Their inflationary pressures, which includes obviously their element of the pay increases, and also the changes to school demography. So as school roll numbers increase, we increase the budget accordingly. So between those two areas, there's approximately £4.4 million additional going into the delegated budget to schools. Community support services, we'll be seeing an increase of just over £3.1 million. That's made up of two elements. You'll be familiar, year on year, we need to increase budgets in this area because of the increase in numbers and cost of packages that we have to do based on purely on the demand the service is facing, and also transferred into there will be the elements for the real living wage that we, as I said, we will need to administer on behalf of the private sector. In a similar fashion, excuse me, for education and children's services, again, an area where we have year on year been putting increases to meet the cost and demands of packages. We've been proposing to increase that by £750,000. School transport, another recurring area, another £500,000 will need to be put into there. There's round about just shy of £1.3 million additional that we're sort of putting together as priority funding. That will be funding for to enable us to continue with the next tranche of the carbon zero projects, to fund the prudential borrowing to increase the allocations for highways in line with the council resolution, to put some funding in place to assist with some of the horizon scanning projects that we know are coming down the track. Whilst this is the revenue budget I'm referring to, in terms of the capital allocations made as part of the budget, those have been reduced this year, and in order that we make up that shortfall, and those funds are generally used to support the block allocations, the disability facilities grants, those sort of things that that we fund on an annual ongoing basis, so that we will need to put in some revenue funding to support additional prudential borrowing to make up that shortfall. For the first time for several years, we actually asked services to identify non-strategic pressures We had a process that went through the budget board and the service budget challenges in the autumn, and just over £1.1 million of those service pressures are being recommended for approval. Referred to the CJC operational core operational costs. It's a bit of a finger in the air because obviously it's the first year, but we were estimating that somewhere in the region of £300,000 would be our contribution levels for that. And then finally, almost a sort of a balancing figure there, just shy of £2 million we're proposing to put in there for the impact of COVID in the next financial year. Hopefully, if all things go well, we won't necessarily need all of that in year, but we may well need to do that depending on how things go. But even more hopefully, that would probably only be required for next financial year, and therefore in future budget rounds it would be a budget that will be able to be offered up as a saving. So all of those that I just very quickly cantered through, and they're contained on pages 77 and 78 in your report, total just over £17.6 million. We would have needed 11% uplift in our RSG settlement to meet that. The 9.2 that we actually received brings in an additional income around about just over £15 million. So there was a shortfall that needed to be filled of £2.6 million. That we're proposing to make up that shortfall by, first of all, the usual implementing of our fees and charges policies, where we increase fees and charges on an annual basis. That would raise £120,000. There were £634,000 of efficiencies that all fall within either the head of service or head of service in conjunction with lead member authorization. And then that brings us to council tax. The proposal that's in front of you is that we increase average council tax by 2.95%. That would raise the balancing amount of £1.87 million in terms of income. As you'll see from the report, that's less than the increases we've brought in the recent years. And as we talked about on the last paper, it's also less than the current rates of inflation as well. Clearly, council tax is a sensitive issue for residents. We would certainly never want to be putting it up higher than we would absolutely need to do in order to deliver the pressures that I just talked us through. And we feel that's at that level, with it being less than inflation, that is a prudent and responsible level to actually bring it in at. In terms of consultations, there's been a number during the course of the year. There's been numerous times with SLT, Cabinet. The Governance and Audit Committee have seen the process and approved that. We've had meetings with group leaders, Cabinet briefing. The schools budget forum have been involved. We've met with the trade unions via the LJCC. So we've done as much as is feasible from that point of view. I should also point out that, sorry, I missed out when I was referring to the efficiencies that were built into the proposals, that neither schools nor community support services were asked to actually provide any savings this year. The final recommendation you'll see on the report as well, I just wanted to mention, is because the draft settlement was very late, just prior to Christmas. That means that the final settlement announcement won't be made until mid-March, which is after, obviously, we will have set our budgets, and in fact, we'll be well on the way to issuing getting the bills printed. So we'll have given us fair assurance that there won't be very much movement between the draft and final settlement. But just to cover us off in the event that there is some small element of movement that we need to address, the final recommendation there is that Steve, as Section 151 officer, in conjunction with myself as lead member, would have authorization to use up to £500,000 of cash to balance anything off. We're hoping there won't be any need for that. We have used that caveat before with late issuing, because we just need to cover things off in case that does happen. So I think that was a very quick canter through what's been quite a complex process, Chair. We've been, again, in terms of working with members, we did make the offer to all groups, and either Steve and myself attended each group to go through the process and to make offers for any pressures or savings that they wish to put forward, and those were covered off at the budget workshop that we held just before Christmas. So I think that's probably all I needed to say at this point. I don't know whether Steve wanted to add, correct, or anything to what I've just said.
Very little as usual, Julian. I have the unions and school budget forum in the last couple of days, just timing wise. As soon as the papers were made public, I made arrangements to meet them, so I've been to their meetings just to confirm that that's happened. Just on the 4 items that were, because it was an unusually high settlement, but it did include these new responsibilities, and that's what's made it really complicated. And it's no, you can't get away from the fact that it was a welcome settlement, but it did involve these extra responsibilities. So we have had, obviously I can make assessments around this, but it's not clear in the settlement of how much funding is included for these items. So we've worked with WLGA and obviously had meetings with other Section 151 officers, and we're broadly making similar assumptions. So the pay assumption, certainly in North Wales, I think we're all going roughly with the 4% type sort of figure. The real living wage for social care providers is a difficult one, but again, we all seem to be making the similar assumptions. So we're between 1 million and 1.6 million. We're 1.2, so we're in that ballpark. Now the really difficult one to judge is that requirement, or the statement in the settlement where it says that there won't be a hardship fund next year, but we've included funding in the settlement instead of having a hardship fund. That's really difficult. In the first year of COVID, we claimed over £22 million from the COVID hardship fund. This year it's looking like 13 million. And obviously we really do hope that, and fingers crossed and everything, that next year the impact of COVID will be far less. But we do believe that we need a contingency in there, because the Welsh Government are basically saying that there's funding in this settlement for any legacy COVID related costs, so don't expect it to be funded from Welsh Government really. So that's why that's in there. And the other thing, just to broad on the council tax level, we've had a quick survey about levels around Wales, and we're looking at being one of the lowest. I'm sure there'll be some that go even lower, but between 2.95 and 4.95 seems to be the range at the moment. So obviously not naming any other authorities, and they'll make their decisions over the coming weeks, but that seems to be the range. So just to give you some assurance around what other authorities are looking at doing. I think that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you both for that pretty comprehensive update on the report. Are there any questions from cabinet members or comments, please?
Yeah, if I could, leader, please, yeah.
Yes, please, Brian.
Yeah, to Julian then. Item 8 on the report, Julian. What consultation has been carried out? First of all, obviously, thanks for the report, and to you, Steve, as well. And as usual, Julian, you deliver it with an absolute element of expertise. But coming back to this point 8, then, what consultation has been carried out? I understand it, obviously, as you'd expect, but could you give us a layperson's brief on the consultation? So SLT, I mean, I know it's senior leadership team, the fact it went to cabinet brief, it went to group leaders, and it went to council briefing. And if I'm making sense, can you sort of add a bit of meat on the bone here? So the council briefing, it was an open invitation to all the county councillors. So if I'm making sense, can you just simplify the consultation element of the report so it's clear to anyone that might read up on it and won't be familiar with our terminology, if you like? Julian,
okay,
please.
yeah, my apologies. As you well know, I can probably hold a conversation just using abbreviations, so I automatically assume everybody knows it. So it's a valid question. Yes, SLT is the senior leadership team, which are our senior officers, directors, heads of service. Yes, it's been a standing item as the budget's being developed on our cabinet briefing sessions, which are held on a monthly basis. I know I've been to group leaders on a couple of occasions to discuss the processes, and also last week or the week before, whenever it was, to take them through, give them a bit of an advance notice of what I was intending putting before cabinet today. As I say, all members through there had the opportunity to put forward any proposals that they saw fit. The council briefing, we had 2 sessions this year. We had one just prior to the summer, which was going through what the assumptions were at the time, and going through the process primarily then. And then we had a more detailed session just before Christmas with which all members were invited to, in terms of going through the proposals and also the feedback from any of the proposals that individual groups had submitted. Hope that helps, Brian.
Yeah, as I say, it's not for my benefit. It's for I was accosted by 2 or 3 residents that obviously didn't understand the process wholly. You wouldn't expect them to. Yeah. So would you agree with me then that every councillor in Denbighshire County Council has had the opportunity to input into this subject matter? And certainly it's not a case of Councillor Julian Thompson-Hill sitting with the Section 151 officer and coming up with a set of figures and a report, and no one else has had the opportunity to input, because some residents do believe that, you know, that's the way it works, if you can believe that. But when you discuss it with him, they understand. And you mentioned their group leaders. We know what group leaders are, but if we take that into the high street and rail, they don't know who group leaders are, when in fact they're the leaders of the political parties in Denbighshire, group leaders. So I think we miss it sometime with the communication. Anyway, thanks for that, Julian, and well done again, and to Steve. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Bobby Feely, please.
Thanks, Leader. Yes, well, I just want to make a point, really, that obviously I'm delighted that the real living wage is being paid for our own social care workers and obviously the private sector. And it is important and a first step, but I want to make the point that this still does not bring social care workers up to the standard of wage, if you like, or pay that they need to make this really well, good job, well paid. So to my mind, although this is a step in the right direction, social care workers will still not be receiving the wage or the pay that they deserve for the work they do. And as you know, we have a massive gap in terms of people who are coming forward to work within the social care sector, making it very, very difficult for those who are working now. So I just wanted to make the point, although we are delighted with this step towards a decent wage, we're far away from this being a decent wage.
Thank you, Bobby, for that. I don't think that was a question. I think that was a legitimate comment there.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark, please.
Yeah, thank you, Lee. Just a couple of points and then a couple of questions. So obviously, if you read the documents, we've got pressures in schools of over 4 million. We've got extra money above inflation going into social care, and 4 million practical going into the highways work programme, and also over $500,000 of pressure to the increased cost of school transport. So a lot of pressure there. I believe this budget does protect online services, especially social services and schools, and there's extra money available for those in hardship. So that's good. So just touching on what Councillor Brian Jones just raised about the meetings we had with group leaders and members. Did you get any feedback and act on it, just as a question? And the one on the real living wage, which is great, and we're all happy about that. The private sector, how easy will it be to manage that element of that? Because I think that's going to be a challenge. So just those two questions, but I do think this protects frontline services, although none of us like to increase costs to anyone.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Julian?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Yes, you're quite right. As far as we're able to do, this budget very much does protect frontline services for all the reasons that you've outlined. I suppose in terms of the real living wage and how much work is it going to entail, I've got the easy role, I suppose, in this respect, but it's just got to make sure that the money's in the right place for it to be dispersed. Perhaps that's something that either Bobby or Nicola would be able to comment on better than me, because they'll be the ones charged with the difficult job of actually dispersing this to quite a considerable number of different operators, all using different models and all of the rest of it. So Nicola, perhaps you want to pick that one up.
Yes, happy. Thank you, Julian. And yeah, I think the points that have been raised so far are absolutely spot on. It is an area that's yet to be worked out. We have meetings this week and next week, including for finance officers, heads of commissioning and directors, to really start to look at the detail of how this will actually work in practice. That hasn't yet been determined. I think it's fair to say, though, that we are in a really strong position in our region, in that that workforce, in a national Welsh level, the workforce programme is led by our colleague director from Conwy, Jenny Williams. So we're right at the forefront of the development of that work, and as a regional team, Denbighshire hosts the regional collaborative team, which, as you know, is led by Catherine Roberts, who has that HR workforce background. So I think whilst that detail is yet to be worked through, and it surely will be complicated, I have no doubt, I think we're in as strong a position as we can be to actually take this forward. But just to assure members, myself, Steve's team, and officers throughout the council have been involved in this from day one to ensure that we're as aware as we can be with the limited information available to date. Diolch.
Okay, happy with that, Mark?
Yeah, I know Jenny Williams and yourself will do your best, but I just raised it because I know it's going to be a big piece of work. There was just one question on any feedback of group leaders or members. Sorry about that, leader. Just that, and then I'm happy. Talk about.
Sorry, Mark. Yes, that was me overlooking that one. I do apologise. Yes, we did get some feedback from the groups in terms of the requests that as I say, that we went out. Those were brought to the budget session that we held prior to Christmas and were addressed as part of that.
Okay, thanks for that, Julian. Okay, any other comments or questions from cabinet members? No. Okay, I'd just like to add, again, it's a very informative report, and the word balance comes into it again, doesn't it, in terms of dealing with the pressures, the new responsibilities. We probably can't disagree with the investment in the new responsibilities, and it's something that we have to be wary of, but we also need to continue that investment. And what helps us focus on that is that we have at last got a 3-year budget, and this settlement is pretty high. The next 2 years are not, and it doesn't help focus the mind when we've got an idea of what the settlement is likely to be in the next couple of years. So I'm looking at this budget as the start of a 3-year budget, not just this one in isolation, because it's very clear there are pressures coming down line which we will have to deal with, and that's why I support the intention to raise the council taxes at this level for now, to put a stronger base for the next couple of years, because there is a challenge coming down line on that. But to be fair, we've been trying to get a 3-year budget for quite a few years now, and Welsh governments or Westminster, whoever, which ones have allowed that to happen for the service providers, which I think is really helpful and needs to be noted. Okay, I'll go to non-cabinet members now. Gyntaf, Meirig, please.
Diolch yn fawr. Be cyntaf oedd eisiau jyst gael gwybod faint fasa pwynt dim 5 yn rhoi beth ni'n godio i 300. Dyna'r cwestiwn cyntaf. Achos oeddech chi'n newydd dweud parchus arweinydd, sylfaen cryfach i'r dyfodol. A'r ail un, dwi ddim yn gallu cydweld hefo pwynt bwlet ar tudalen 81 ar doll y gwasanaeth tân ac yn y blaen, sef charge ydi o yn eich rhestr chi ar tudalen 85, ond nid cais ydi o am daliad. Da chi'n rhoi social service charge, da chi'n rhoi children's service charge, a dwi'n meddwl mae math yna o beth ydi hefo'r awdurdod tân, ond cais ydi o am daliad sy'n cael ei wneud i bob cyngor sir yng Ngogledd Cymru. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch, Meirig. Oce, na i gofyn chydig o cwestiynau wan, a mae'n ambell un eisiau gofyn cwestiwn wan. Nesa, Arwel, please.
Diolch yn fawr a blwyddyn newydd i chi. Mi aeth y ffôn y fan arwan am y ddrwg i ni. Dwi'n gefnogi be ddiwydodd Bobby Feely ynghylch yr talu cyflog byw gwirioneddol i'r sector cymdeithasol, ac mae hwnna'n ymhoeni fi farw be di dyfodol y bobl yma, ac yn wedi gwasanaethau plant, a da ni'n mynd i gadw yn staff yn y dyfodol. Hefyd, costau gwersogi yn cynyddu. Mae hyn yn mynd i ddigwydd oherwydd beth sydd wedi digwydd hefo Covid, ac mae hyn yn bod yn broblem mawr i deuluoedd yn ein sir ni, a hefyd fod y cronfa caledi Covid yn dod i ben. Y cwestiwn sydd gen i ydy, oes na fwy o grantiau mynd i gyrraedd y cynghorau sir yn y dyfodol? A ydych chi wedi edrych ar eich asedau? Ydych chi'n dweud bod chi eisiau 11% a bod chi wedi gofod codi'ch treth mwyn cyrraedd hynny. Ydych chi wedi edrych ar eich asedau? Achos yn y dyfodol dwi'n meddwl mai dyma sut byddwn ni yn cyfarfod. Fel hyn y byddwn ni yn gweld yn gilydd, nid yn aml byddwn ni'n mynd i adeiladau. Falle bod chi eisiau gwerthu chydig o'ch adeiladau a chasedau. Ac felly, dyna'r cwestiwn sydd gen i, oes gennych chi unrhyw
ryw syniadau newydd i godi sefyllfa ariannol y sir, ac dwi yn poeni am ein teuluoedd sydd yn ein gofal ni hefo costau byw yn cynyddu, yn enwedig gwasanaethau plant. Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi.
Diolch Arwel am hwnna. Cael tri, dwi'n meddwl, dwi wedi colli llad. Rhys, please.
Okay.
Diolch Arweinydd. Cwestiwn i Council i Steve Gadd, dwi'n meddwl, ydy hwn a rhywbeth wedodd o. I've just been looking at the provisional local government settlement for this year, and I'm looking at the aggregate external finance, the AEF, and it comes in, as we know, at 9.4%, 9.2, I think, for Denbighshire. Last year, the AEF was 3.8%. I'd like Steve to take a guess. The four new elements that fall into Denbighshire and local authority responsibility, what percentage of that 9.2% do you think is accounted for by the four new elements? And I'm sure that you and your colleagues have given this some thought, but I realize that we are probably far from an exact figure. So dyna'r question, how much do those four new elements cost out of that 9.2%? Thank you, Steve. He's nodding, so it seems as though I've made sense. I was worried if I wasn't making any sense. Thank you. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch, Rhys. The question did make sense. I'm not sure if the answer will, though. But anyway, we'll get to that one. Okay, Julian, could you respond to Eric's two questions, please?
Yes, I'll do the factual one first of all. You inquired what the difference would be if the council tax was increased from 2.95% to 3.5%. I think that was the figure you asked.
To 3.
So to 3.
To 3.
3%.
Yes.
From 2.95 to 3%.
Yes.
Oh,
Want me to come in there, Julian?
It's okay. Very, very little is the quick answer. So I thought it said 3.5, and that only brought in an extra 321,000. So 0.05% would be about 1% is 584,000. Let's put it that way. You can work out the percentage accordingly on that.
£30,000, Julian.
Yeah, it's 29,000.
Yeah. So I haven't got a calculator in front of me there.
Yeah, okay. if you look on the council tax sensitivity analysis appendix, that does put that figure in there, but it's 29k extra funding, and it's 72 pence further increase in band D levels. So those are the two figures.
It was an unfair question for Julian if you didn't have calculators. And the phraseology on the
yes, this is a hardy perennial debate that Merrick and I always have, so no doubt we will continue to have it. Legally, it is a levy. The fire service sets its budget, and the local authorities essentially have to pay whatever their element of it is. So from that point of view, I know we always dance around what we call it, but legally it is a levy.
Okay, thank you for that. Next question, please, Julian. Arwel was, are there more grants going to be reaching Denbighshire next year?
Do you want me to come in there?
Yes, Steve, if you want to put that one in, thanks. Yeah.
It really is a mixed picture on the grants at the moment. So I guess what Welsh Government would say is yes in total, because there are some big things that are coming in as grants. The main big one is the free school. Well, the provision of meals for free in primary schools isn't in the settlement. It is being dealt with as a grant, certainly for the first 3 years, and I imagine it's after that those 3 years, because it's being phased in over those 3 years. It'll be brought into RSG at a later date, but at the moment it's going in as a grant. So that's on the grants, £40 million across Wales for the first year. We have seen some reduction, some education grants. So it is a mixed picture. You've seen the impact on the capital grants have reduced this, well, for 22-23, and they go back up again in future years. So yeah, we look at.
We've lost you, Steve.
Oh, I'll switch my video off. Did you get any of that?
We got the first bit, Steve.
Well, basically, it's a mixed picture. Did you hear the school meals?
School meals,
yeah. So there's ups and downs. There are some education grants that look like they've been cut at the moment, or reduced, let's put it that way. But then you don't know whether are they bringing them together into a separate pot that they'll announce at a later date. So we've got the bare bones of the picture, but it's something that over the coming weeks and months leading up to the new financial year, we'll get a full picture, and we can bring something back to cabinet or scrutiny, wherever, to give you that full picture if required at probably at the beginning of the next council, really, because we'll have a full picture by then. As far as the assets are concerned, the question on assets, Arrow, it is something we're looking at, but it is part of when we've I think this was one of your other questions as well, when we went through the service challenge meetings, budget challenge meetings in the autumn, one of the tasks was to identify big projects that could produce some savings, so that we wouldn't have to go back to asking for 5, 6, 10% savings from services. That's the aim of the budget process at the moment. So we do have a good long list. The Civica project being one of them that was on earlier this agenda, but certainly new ways of working and looking at our assets is one of those projects, but it's at the very early stages at the moment. So there's nothing. So that would probably come in either 2 years, 2 or 3, and obviously it's very uncertain. It's like there was a question earlier on capital receipts. It is just very difficult to plan for such things because of the we've hoped to be able to sell a few assets, and it's just if the market's not there, then it is really difficult. Doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do, but it is difficult to plan as far as budget's concerned. Do you want me to go on to Trace's? Well, my connection seems to be holding up.
Yeah, please.
So yeah, Trace, it's quite a difficult question to answer, and you can answer it in any number of ways or a few different ways. What I would say is that the ask before we knew any of these pressures was for membership was that we would have needed a 6% settlement to bridge the gap this is what we were saying at the council briefing before Christmas. Now another couple of pressures have come about since then, but so you could say that actually it's the 3.2% has gone in, and that's what's cost the extra. Now what you can look at is what we were projecting as a gap in December was 7.9 million. Now the 9.2% gave us 15 million. So again, you could use that as a judge, and actually that's £7 million. And if you look at the £7 million, what that's made up of, there are a couple of things that are local. So the local ones are things like the additional 500k for school transport, the increase in the priorities budget. You probably deem that as a local decision. Everything else that's in there, so a budget in for CJCs, increase in pay inflation for schools, increase in pay inflation for non-schools, the increase in so those two together is 2.3 million. The social care real and living wage commitment was 1.1 million, and the removal of the hardship fund is almost 2 million, 1.988. So if you add all those up together, you get somewhere between £5.5 and £7 million, and then you can sort of discuss whether some of those are actually just local. But the big items, the £5.5 million, is all these new responsibilities and pressures that we've got from the announcement. So yeah, about, if you want to say figure, at least £5.5 million is to do with those new responsibilities.
Okay, thanks for that, Steve. it's no point coming back because we're going to discuss this in full council as well, as anybody does give a guide for the conversation if needed in full council. Emrys, that's it, question? Hello, Emrys, it's your mute. O ti'n eisiau dod? Dim cwestiwn agwedd Emrys?
Oes, mae gennau gwestiwn, ond dwi ddim ar mute.
O reit, oce.
Chi'n rhoi di rwan?
Dwi'n clywed ti'n iawn o'n Emrys yn dod.
Dwi wedi tynnu pethau yma allan o'n i drio felly. Ia, edrych yn sydyn ar atodiad 1, tudalen 85, mae yna golofn o dan gwariant o waste pressures. Fi'n cymryd bod ni'n trafod gwastraff y fanna. Does e ddim ffigurau o gwbl yn y colofnau ar gyfer flwyddyn nesaf na'r blynyddoedd canlynol. Oes y reswm am hynny o gofio bod yna elfennau o'r gwasanaeth gwastraff yn mynd i fod yn daladwy, lle doedden nhw ddim yn daladwy o blaen, fydd yn golygu mwy o gostau i'r bobl sy'n am eu defnyddio nhw. Oes y reswm pam nad ydy'r ffigurau yna ddim yna, ac byddan nhw ar gael pan fydd hyn yn cael ei drafod yn mis Mawrth.
Diolch Emrys. Steve, did you get that question?
Want me to come in there, Julian?
Yeah, okay, Steve. Yeah, I'll just.
Yeah, I mean, the main reason is just that's the previous year's figures, the one with the waste pressure, and there was a specific strategic pressure we put in for waste. The service has, we've made up, there's a reduction in the sustainable waste management grant again. That happens. That's been happening over a number of years. So we've made up that shortfall this year. I think it's about 85k that's in but that's classed as part of the 1.1 million now, part of the service pressures. It's been treated as a service pressure rather than a strategic pressure. And we will include pressures going forward if required. Just on the following 2 years figures, they are there. But the only figure that's really been updated is the settlement that we've had, just so that you can see, and I've included it just so you can see that the following 2 years settlement figure that we think we're getting. So basically we just get slightly lower than the average that they quote. So we take off about 0.2% to get to the figure that we think we'll get in those 2 years. The task over the next 2 months for me is to now update those years 2 and 3 figures fully with all the information that we've got to hand, and I'll be bringing that to the budget board, and it will be going through as form part of the MTFS that I can't promise whether it'll be before the election, but at some point it will come through through cabinet so that people can see a full strategy for the full 3 years. So those next 2 years are a work in progress. They're in there so that you can see the settlement figure really.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I might follow this up, but not today. Diolch yn fawr.
Okay, diolch. Okay, no more questions? No comments? Okay, Julian, can you come to the recommendation, please?
Yeah, sorry, just let me scroll back to the recommendations. Okay, so the recommendations are 3.1 to note the impact of the draft local government settlement for 22-23. 3.2, the Cabinet support proposals outlined in Appendix 1 and detailed in Section 4 and recommends them to full council to finalise the budget for 2022-23. 3.3, to recommend to council the average council tax rise of 2.95% proposed. 3.4, to recommend to council that authority is delegated to the head of finance and property in consultation with the lead member for finance to adjust the use of cash included in the budget proposals by up to £500,000 if there is movement between the draft and final settlement figures in order to allow the setting of council tax in a timely manner. And 3.5, the Cabinet confirms it's read, understood and taken account of the wellbeing impact assessment.
Okay, thank you. That's been proposed. Is there a seconder for that? Mark, yes. Is everybody in agreement?
Yeah.
Nobody against? No, nobody against. Okay, thank you for that. And thank you to Julian, Steve and officers for preparing that comprehensive report. Diolch yn fawr. Okay, no letter, Julian. Agenda item 10, finance report.
Yeah, my throat was going before I started this. So yeah. Okay, so if you're not all financed out by now, we will now have my regular update with regards to the current financial year up to the end of December. Headline news is that the projected overspend has increased from 1.35 million to 1.64 million. As we've spoken about in the previous report, we continue to claim off the COVID hardship fund, which will come to a conclusion at the end of March. In terms of corporate budgets, they continue to show us a break-even. We have the usual unknown figures in terms of council tax reduction scheme take-up, and of course we've already discussed the pay award hasn't yet been determined. In terms of schools, as I've detailed in previous reports, balances are reducing from those at the beginning of the financial year for the reasons that we all know about, in terms of the late grants that came in at the back end of the previous financial year, which are now being used. And in terms of the non-delegated budget, there was a projected small underspend of around about 120,000. Appendix 2 to your report gives some text and context in terms of the service variations, and that difference in projected overspend is predominantly down to two areas this month. There's children's services, 74,000 increase projected overspend, and it's the usual reasons, increasing in cost of placements. And in highways and environment, it's down to an increase in the cost of disposal fees at Park ADFA. On D side, this is an in-year cost. You'll see one of the elements within the last paper was a transfer in of some of an element which will go towards this for next financial year, but this is an in-year pressure. In terms of the major capital schemes, most of the major school projects are nearing their finalisation now, as you'll see from the report. The new waste model and East Rail flood defence schemes are progressing well. In terms of the Queen's Market redevelopment, there will be a report coming back to Cabinet in order to for us to let the development contract for phase 1. Work is still being undertaken to finalise all of the costs on that. There have been a number of significant impacts on the budget, largely out of our control. So there is a likelihood that there will be a need to request further funding, but that will become part of the paper that will come back. So I'm not in a position at this stage to say anything any more at that stage. I think that's probably all I needed to say at this point. I'm conscious of the time. Steve, is there anything that you wanted to highlight or anything I missed out?
Only one thing, just with since writing the report, obviously schools have been given extra money from Welsh Government, I think about 1.5 million already. So I'm just flagging up that the similar thing might happen this year as happened last year. Yeah,
we're getting towards that end of year, aren't we? So
yeah. So that's the only thing that's happened.
Okay, thank you both for that. And any questions or comments from Cabinet members?
Yes, Leader, if I could, keep Julian on his mettle and keep him churning over. On the Park advert, can you just give a brief overview, Park advert, what it does down there, and the fact there's a bit of a pressure there that's in your report, but actually the whole mechanism of Park advert, we do, as you say, there's monies that come back the other way into the budget. Again, just because I think people probably forgot about what Park Adver is. Big success story in North Wales for the region. So just a couple of words, please, Julian. Thank you.
Yeah, as you say, and obviously you're more afraid with it than me, seeing as it falls within your portfolio. Park Adver is the combined facility that 5 of the 6 North Wales authorities run through the partnership that we have for waste. It's located on D side for the residual waste. It's basically where we as an alternative to taking it to landfill, which is a better option with regards to that. The in-year pressure refers to an in-year increase in the gate fees that we are charged as one of the users, along with all the other authorities. And as I indicated, it's an in-year pressure, but the cost is then reimbursed as a transfer in from the grant for next financial year. So it only impacts on this current year. I think I'm right in saying that, Steve.
Yeah, that's the. It's actually Flintshire have been given the mechanics of it are really the funding mechanism for Park Adver is a science in itself. But there's funding in the only 2 transfers in are this issue with gate fees, and it doesn't just impact Park Adver. I think there's one down south as well, and we've been reimbursed for that increase. But obviously that doesn't happen until next year, so we'll just have to take the pressure this year. But I think we'll need to do some just detailed costings to make sure there is enough, and obviously Tony can put forward a pressure next year if it's not as part of the service pressures.
Okay, happy, Brian?
Yeah, fine. And obviously that pressure now is because we're sending more through, so it's increased. Most of it is increased tonnage, which is good if we've got our climate change happening on. The only thing you miss out, Julian, that I was the chair of the North Wales Residual Waste Committee, one of the many highlights of my cabinet career. That in very quickly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Didn't want to give you a big head, Brian.
Any other comments or questions from cabinet members? No. Okay. Questions from other members? No. Okay. Thank you, Julian. You're getting away with this report, Julian. Fully deserved. You can come to the recommendation, please.
I don't know whether I appreciate the getting away with comment, leader. 3.1 recommendation. Members note the budgets set for 21-22 and progress against the agreed strategy.
Okay, that's been proposed. Is there a seconder?
To second that, leader, Richard Minham.
Okay, that's been seconded. Everyone's supporting this? Nobody against, is there? No, no one against. That's been moved. Thank you, Julian, for all of that. And the last agenda item is the Cabinet Forward Work Plan. Lisa, is there any comments you want to add to what's in the report?
There is a comment actually, and we've obviously got the meeting in Cabinet on the 15th of February. Item number 3, the waste fleet, the new waste fleet to support new waste service model is being moved to the following cabinet meeting, and the cabinet date for March, that was down at the 22nd of March, is now being brought forward to the 15th of March 2022.
Yes. Okay. Thanks for that, Lisa. I think all members have been notified of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bobby.
Yeah, I just wanted to raise the fact that we were, at the RPB on Friday, and there's a population needs assessment which has been done in collaboration with 6 local authorities and BCU that needs to come through Cabinet before going to the Welsh Government the end of March. Nicola, you're there. I know in the background there. Should we make a space in February for this? Or is it full council? Nicola, you there?
It's on a forward work programme, Bobby, so it must be
is
full.
it? Well,
is it full council?
Oh, right. Okay. I thought it was on the cabinet. Okay. I thought, well, in fact, I'm still sure it was to go through cabinet. I'm sure it needs to go through.
I'll check with Democratic Services offline and ensure it's on an appropriate agenda, but I've certainly
Okay,
done all
all
of
right.
I've done all of the reports for it.
I'm sure in the meeting on Friday we said it had to go through our cabinets.
It has to go through governance arrangements, but it's for each partner to determine the most appropriate governance route.
Good. Okay then. All right. Just checking.
Okay, that's could be sorted. Okay, happy with that. Okay, final one today, Graham, please.
Thank you, Leader. It's not on the forward work programme, but if we're coming to a conclusion, I just thought it'd be appropriate for me to thank members and officers for bringing forward those detailed reports today and answering all the questions. I think it's been a really good meeting. I thank members as well for their attendance and their, what I think was very fair and appropriate questioning and challenging. I think it's been an excellent meeting. Thank you very much, Leader. Thank you.
No, thanks for that, Graham, and I support and echo that. Really, the quality of the reports and the detail in them was really helpful to get the debates to where it was needed. And as always, it's good to have a good level of challenge to some of the reports in cabinet as well. It strengthens the recommendation when questions are asked, so we do appreciate that. Diolch yn fawr i chi gyd, and that's the end of the meeting. Have a good day and see you next month. Diolch yn fawr. Hwyl.
Diolch yn fawr.